Right, it appears we're live streaming.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Development Management and Licensing Committee. A Happy New Year to all of you and to anyone who may be watching the YouTube stream of this meeting. This is a meeting of the DM&L committee, and this committee has delegated authority from the Town Council to comment on planning and licensing applications within the parish. We'll start by just confirming that you can all hear me and just making sure that we are quorate, although one glance at the screen tells me that we are. But if I could just call out your names, and if you could just indicate that you can hear me, please, just by waving at me or however you wish to respond. Councillor Leslie Crawford. Thank you. Councillor Graham Parker.
I'm here and I can hear you, Chairman.
Councillor Mrs. Ann Johnson.
I'm here and I can hear you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Alan Lewis. Councillor Tony Fay. Councillor James Ellis. Councillor Peter Squire. Councillor Barry Smith. And Councillor Andy Hutton. We also have with us Councillor Mrs. Ewings, ward member, who is observing and may contribute as we go along. So we'll go immediately to the agenda, and we start off with apologies for absence. The only person we're missing is Councillor Venning. Have we heard anything from Alec Venning, Jan?
I've had no apology for absence.
Okay, he may join us later, we'll see. And then item 2 is the minutes of the last meeting. Are you all happy that it's an accurate reflection of what took part at the last meeting? Thumbs are going up. Everyone's happy? So we accept those minutes and I will sign them in due course. Item 3, declarations of interest. As usual, if you do have any interest to declare, would you please do so now? Graham?
Chair, yeah, there's an application coming up. I forget the number of it, but it's the one that Paul Brooks is the architect for. Paul is an architect working for me on a project at the moment. So what I propose to do is mute myself and turn off my video.
Okay, Jan? You're muted, Jan. You're still muted, Jan.
Could you give me the address, Councillor Parker, please, so I can know?
Yeah, I'll look it up now, Jan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll just clarify that in a moment. Andy?
Land adjacent to Breckland, 203980. My property just abuts them by about 2 meters. So I'll just withdraw the video and mute.
Thank you. Graham?
Yes, for Jan, the reference is Overdeer Down Road, and the reference is 203877.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Okay. If you become aware of any interest as we go through the agenda, please make that known as soon as you're aware of it in the usual way. Okay, so item 4 is Dartmoor National Park. And we've had some correspondence, and this is to note the initial response from the inspector following the consultation period for the Dartmoor National Park local plan. As far as I could see, no action is required from us at this stage, but it's there for your information. It's a very technical bit of correspondence, I thought. And I think at this stage, we'll just be aware that it's come through and wait and see whether anything's needed of us in due course. Unless anyone's got anything to say about it at this stage. Yeah, Graham. You're muted.
Chair, we did make a couple of supportive comments and a couple of what we thought were helpful observations. So with your permission, I'll keep an eye on that correspondence with the inspector and keep you in touch with how things develop.
Okay, thank you. I think it's because we made some comments that we received that correspondence.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so we move on to item 5 now. 5A, town planning issues for information. To note the South Hams and West Devon Draft Housing Strategy Consultation 2021-2026. This has a revised closing date at the end of February, to which individual town and parish councillors had been invited to respond. I think we did feel that we probably ought to respond as a council. We've obviously got a bit of time to do that, and I'm rather inclined to bring it back to another meeting, maybe the next one. And I wonder whether any particular councillor would like to lead on that one and guide us through our discussion, Councillor Ellis.
I'm always happy to be of assistance to this council.
You're very kind, sir. If you could, I mean, we all need to read it, but if you would be so kind as to lead a discussion, perhaps at the next meeting, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Not an issue.
Thank you very much. And then 5B, Plymouth Road Development, to receive and discuss any response received from the local planning authority. I propose taking this in 2 chunks, perhaps an administrative chunk now, but this application is also the first of the applications in Appendix B, when we will talk about it again at that point. But this particular note is in reference to a letter that I wrote with your agreement to the Chief Executive of the Borough Council, basically expressing our problems with this application and seeking a meeting or trying to find some way of moving forward with it. And that went off just before Christmas, and just before everything shut down for the holiday. We had an email on behalf of Andy Bates, who said he would be happy to meet with us virtually, obviously, so we can have a discussion. And then today we have had another email suggesting Thursday, the 21st of January, starting at 6:30. And that would be using Microsoft Teams. And I just want to see whether members would be happy with that. Graham? Yep, thumbs up. Okay, that's fine. That looks as though that's a satisfactory date then, Jan, that we could relay that back to them. And then your thoughts, please. My feeling is that this is open to all members of DM&L. Obviously, other members of Tavistock Town Council are welcome to watch if they wish. I don't know, it's been organised from their end, but I would have thought that this is an informal meeting and therefore would not be streamed. Would that be your understanding, Jan? You're muted.
They clearly are going to be the ones who are going to set this meeting up, and
Yeah.
I don't believe it will be live streamed because it is an informal meeting.
I personally feel that is appropriate. Graham?
Yeah, just a thought. If we're not streaming, then of course I think it means that other members of Tavistock Town Council will be joining us actually on the Teams rather than through YouTube. Does it not?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. I hope that will be helpful. We're going to have some more discussion about the application itself shortly, but we've got until, well, we had until the 8th of January to comment on this application, but we've now been assured that we have longer than that, and that we will have time at least to take whatever recommendations we come to full council on the 26th of January. So I think the way I see things panning out is that we'll have a little bit more discussion today. We'll have the meeting with Andy Bates on the 21st. We will then have to have a discussion and agree a recommendation to go to full council for the 26th. You're looking very pensive, Anne.
Just wondering when the next meeting of DM&L is, because if we're going to have the meeting with the borough on the 21st, have we got a meeting scheduled on the 25th of January? I'm not sure how they fall in.
Yeah, Jan's nodding her head.
But
Yes.
as we discussed last time, that is the night before full council.
Okay, thank you.
It doesn't give a lot of time.
No.
No, but it does give some time.
Yeah, it'll focus the mind, won't it? So that sounds as though that's going to be the time frame, the timeline, and we'll see what comes out of it. Okay, and we'll come back to the application itself shortly. So that brings us to agenda item number 6, general correspondence, and we've not received anything. Item 7, urgent business brought forward at the discretion of the chairman. I've not had anything to bring forward to you. And that takes us straight into planning applications. So 8A, decisions by West Devon Borough Council. Did anyone wish to make any comments or observations? I think there was one new one where we had a different view, if I remember correctly. 219 Whitchurch Road. Householder application for proposed 2-storey side extension to existing dwelling. We objected to it on various grounds. However, it has been given conditional approval. I confess I haven't gone back to the officer's report and the decision notice, so I don't know where we had a difference of opinion. Graham?
The difference of opinion, Chair, was that we felt that the opportunity should be taken with this application to restore the wooden windows and the glazing bars on the rest of the building, and the case officer felt that since there was already a significant amount of UPVC on the rest of the building, then there was no harm in this extension being carrying UPVC windows as well. I have to say that more than one person in the area has said, and it's something that I do have some sympathy with, that if being in a conservation area doesn't make any difference to the way in which officers deal with planning applications, then why are properties in conservation areas in the first place? It's something that's in the case of that particular building, because the conservation area is drawn around that building specifically to include it. It's a good question, and up to now I haven't found an answer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's disappointing.
Very.
I don't think I spotted anything else that we weren't already aware of. So if you're all happy, we'll go straight on to 8B, the new applications. So 8B, and sure enough, we start with the Baker Estates application. We had some discussion about this last time, of course. Oh, Jan, Alex in the waiting room. We had some discussion about this last time, but we agreed to defer it, and we won't be making a final recommendation this evening either. But I wonder whether any of you have had an opportunity to give this one some more thought, and if you have, to share those thoughts with us. You probably received an email this afternoon from Kit Harbottle on behalf of Transition Tavistock. And they have clearly looked at this application in very fine detail from the point of view of sustainable transport, particularly walking and cycling, and have made, I thought, a lot of very interesting and valid comments. And they also made comments about vehicular access, direct access to the Morrison site, to reduce the amount of walking, safety of crossing the Plymouth Road to get over to the bus stop. Really quite a long list of things which I really think need to be taken on board. I thought that was a really helpful contribution, which they have sent, and they have objected to both the full application for the houses and the outline application for the extra care facility. You'll also, if you've looked at the website recently, today maybe, the number of members of the public objecting to this application is growing steadily. There's quite a long list now. And most of the comments relate to things like safe access to the A386, the number of junctions that are going to be developing along that stretch, what with Anderton Lane, the access to the Linden Homes site, the access to this site, the access to Bishopsmead, all within a short area. And comments such as, well, why can't some of these accesses come to one point at the roundabout, for example, and try and make it safer. So there clearly is interest out there in what's going on. But perhaps if I could ask you whether you have any comments you wish to share with us, please. Pete.
Presumably the comments of Kit Harbottle and Tavistock in transition will be forwarded, if not already done so, to West Devon Borough Council Planning, I presume so.
Yes, I think they've gone direct to West Devon and we've been copied in. I don't think we're expected to forward them. It was for our information. Graham?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't think it'll surprise you to know that I've been through this application on the big issues at any event with a fine-tooth comb. I'm in the process of producing a note, which I will circulate with your agreement and timing. Can I say that, first of all, you will have all been warned about predetermination. We're warned about predetermination regularly, and yes, and very vociferously. There is, though, something called predisposition. Now, I am predisposed on this application. I'm predisposed to apply the policies of the Plymouth and South West Devon Joint Local Plan, which is our statutory duty anyway. So what I've been doing is looking to see what justification there is for the proposal in the local plan, and where the local plan stands on the application. Let me put up my views under three headings. The first is the employment land. For the purposes of the Act, because it fails to make provision for employment, B1 employment floor space, the application is clearly and directly in conflict with policy TTV 17 and SPT 4 of the development plan. And Jan, if it helps, I'll send you a note that will help your minutes on this one. And I mean, there's no doubt about that. The policy says in the order of 300 houses and 18,600 square meters of B1 employment, and the application doesn't help in any way on achieving that policy. The question is, are there any material considerations why we shouldn't apply the terms of the local plan? I have been through everything that the applicant has written on this, and quite frankly, they haven't put forward a single, as far as I can see, a single valid reason why they are not complying, as it were, with the local plan. And so where we stand there is a big objection on that ground. The second heading is extra care. Now this one's interesting because what they're doing is they're seeking permission for up to 60 bedrooms, which incidentally is up to 120 people. I've checked on the Totnes. We're going to hear a lot about the Totnes proposal, because although there's no details in the Plymouth Road application, what the applicant told us, you'll recall, was that the whole project is modelled on Totnes. The site size has been chosen because it fits the Totnes model. The Totnes of drawing is actually on the Plymouth Road model, and the amount of car parking that they talked about when Mandy asked the questions about car parking were all based on the Totnes model. So I have looked at the Totnes proposal. I've read the application, the officer's report, the appeal decisions, and the section 106. So I'm confident in saying that 60 bedrooms here means up to 120 people, plus a range of support facilities, some of which will be open for public use. Now, they told us that at the presentation 2 weeks ago as well. So my own view, and it's a view that I've held pretty well all my professional life, and I certainly held it with relation to the Vistry permission, was that in order to grant permission in outline for up to 60 bedrooms, the planning authority must satisfy itself that you can get 60 bedrooms on the site. Because I understand there was a site visit the other day when I think you were there, Chairman, that some of the local councillors asked about this very issue. And the answer was, oh no, because it says up to 60 beds, we can always amend that at reserved matters. Well, as a matter of law, that is wrong. A reserved matters submission is not a planning application. It doesn't have the status or legal status of a planning application. It is a submission. And all that the reserved matters can do is flesh out the details of the permission, of the outline permission. Now, if you have a permission for up to 60 bedrooms, that means including 60 bedrooms. And you can't use a reserved matters submission to say, oh, well, we didn't actually mean that, we only meant 30. So first thing that I say is, got to satisfy yourself, the council has to satisfy itself that you can get 60 bedrooms on that site. Now, what does that mean? It means, looking at Totnes, it's a 5-storey building. At the entrance to a World Heritage site on the edge, by their own landscape architect's description, on the rural edge of a small settlement, we're proposing to put a building that wouldn't look out of place in a town, in the city centre. It will be, apart from a couple of the churches, it'll be the tallest building, the bulkiest building in Tavistock. Now, the council, West Devon Council, has to satisfy itself that putting a building of that scale in that location will be acceptable. And they've got to do that now, because there's no chance of revisiting that 60 bedrooms at reserved matters stage. Second thing is 24 car parking spaces. Councillor Ewings made the point very, very eloquently that this building is surrounded by, and will continue to be surrounded by, residential roads, with no allocated or available off-street parking spaces for members of the public. Bishopsmead, Tiddybrook, the new proposal of the Vistry site next door, and the Baker site itself are the only overflow car parking spaces that would be available for this development. And if they get it wrong, as Councillor Ewing said, there will be real trouble. That's real harm to the existing and proposed residents of the area. The answer was 24 car parking spaces is what Totnes has got, and 24 car parking spaces causes no problem at all in Totnes. Well, I can believe that. What you weren't told is that within a matter of yards of the Totnes development, there are 2 South Hams pay and display car parks with 140 car parking spaces, and they are free after 6 o'clock at night. So Totnes has a parking resource for visitors of all kinds that is not available to this location. Now, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. What I'm saying is that West Devon Borough Council have a duty to the existing residents and to the town to be sure that 24 car parking spaces in this location for a 120 person extra care home, which is going to have social facilities open to the public. Remember, the bistro is going to be open to the public. The hairdresser is going to be available for the public. They're going to welcome and encourage volunteers to come in and work with the residents as they do in Totnes. They must satisfy themselves that that can be got on the site. On the face of it, and looking at the evidence that was given at the local plan inquiry and the landscaper's comments on the Vistry application and Baker's own landscape consultants, I doubt that a case could be made for a building much more than 2 stories high. 2 stories with a roof seems to be where all of that documentation takes you. And that's why it's important. We'll come on to affordable housing at the moment, in a minute, but if you can only get a 2-story building on that site, then you cannot get 60-bed extra care home on the site. You cannot get the 22 jobs that the application promises. Now, those 22 jobs are there to replace the B1 employment allocation that's made for this site. Now, that B1 employment, according to government estimates, can provide 396 jobs. So we're in the balance of 22 or fewer jobs against 396 jobs, and that's the kind of decision that the Borough Council has to take. And it all starts by understanding what size of extra care home you can get on this site. Now, they certainly shouldn't, no planning authority shouldn't contemplate becoming the lead developer, and that's all part of this proposal as well. West Devon Borough Council is proposing to buy this site for £1 and in exchange let off the Baker Estates from all of its employment obligations, buy the site for £1 and develop it itself. Now, I doubt that the people of Tavistock would be very pleased if it turned out that they didn't check the capacity of the site and they couldn't actually get 60 extra care beds on there in the first place. We've been down this road before on the Vistry site. It took West Devon nearly 2 years to admit that they forgot to ask about the capacity of the employment site on the Vistry land, and the absolute maximum that you can get on there is about 8,000 square meters, not 18. They've already made this mistake once. So we've got a situation where under extra care, the applicant is promoting extra care, and it does seem to be with the explicit support of West Devon members and officers. And I say members because the application documentation makes it very clear that at least one lead member has given a blessing for this in their own documentation. They're proposing an extra care on this site that will do two things. One, it'll get Baker out of any obligation to provide employment on the site. But the second, and now we'll come on to my third heading, which is section 106, it's also there to relieve Baker of any obligations for affordable housing. There's going to be no affordable housing on this residential site. Now, any other housing developer would be asked to provide for a 45 house development 13.5 affordable homes. Okay, so that's 13 on site and under 0.5 as a financial contribution. Now, the first thing is the fact that there's no affordable housing attached to the housing development means that there's a direct conflict with Joint Local Plan Policy DEV 8, which is absolutely clear. Within the whole policy area, a minimum of at least 30% of on-site affordable housing that's on-site will be sought for all schemes of 11 or more dwellings. Off-site provision or commuted payments in lieu of on-site provision will only be allowed where robustly justified. Now, there's no justification for this at all in this application, let alone robust. All it says is, well, the local authority agrees it. The local authority agrees that no affordable housing should be put on this site. I mean, that's astonishing. Under any circumstances, that is astonishing. What they say is that the extra care proposal is the affordable housing. Now that the fact that the council will buy this land for £1 is the delivery mechanism. Well, there's no delivery mechanism there because, first of all, if you can't get 60 beds on here, then you can't deliver it. So it doesn't matter who owns it. If you can't get 60 beds on here, but you say you can only get 30, then would you really swap the affordable housing on the housing site for a 30-bed extra care home, even if anybody would build it? So one wonders where this comes from. So back to our old friend Totnes. What happened at Totnes? Well, that went to appeal, and the inspector was very interested in the affordable housing. And at Totnes, it wasn't, by the way, it wasn't Baker that put the Totnes application. It was our old friend Lyndon Holmes. Lyndon agreed to provide on-site affordable housing for the residential part. So 11 on-site units. The housing manager said, well, we would actually also like an off-site contribution, and they agreed to that as well. So on the housing side, they agreed, I think it was 25 affordable housing units, half on-site, half off-site. And then came the extra care, and they were very happy to say there that all of the extra care became affordable housing as well. So now it begins to look, on Totnes, you got the right amount of affordable housing for the housing development, and an extra care development that is completely 100% affordable housing. Half is shared equity and half is affordable rent. So now one wonders why a Section 106 is being proposed in which the council buy the land for £1, and in exchange, not only is the residential developer let off the employment obligations, but they're also let off the affordable housing obligations. I mean, it seems to me that this is a Section 106 agreement that, in terms of affordable housing, only the developer wins. Tavistock and West Devon lose. They do not get the affordable housing. So that's number one. Number two, and I promise you we're within a couple of seconds of my end, primary education. It gets worse. The County Council has asked for no contributions for primary education, not one. Now, I almost despair about this. Let's just take the last application. The last application, even though I think the whole argument was rubbish, at least the County Council said, well, the first 166 houses can be built with no education contribution because there are vacancies that will take the children from those houses. But and this is the Vistry application for 250, but the last 84, well, there aren't enough spaces to accommodate those, so we want a contribution of about £250,000. So at least we know that there's no vacancies left and they need money. Comes to Baker Estates and they say, oh, actually, there are plenty of vacancies in existing schools, and so we're asking for no contribution. Now, I served a Freedom of Information request on the County Council following the Town Council's concerns about primary education. I got a response from the County Council just before Christmas, and that response is complete gobbledygook. I mean, it's absurd, but certainly in terms of this application, even on the County Council's own calculations, they should be making a full contribution to the primary school at Callington Road. And I calculate that to be about £250,000. I know it's a drop in the ocean, but one of the things that the County Council have told me is that even after this development, there's no more to come in Tavistock. They have only collected £2.5 million towards the cost of a £4.5 million school. And on the way, they've given well over 500 houses, mainly for Vistry, it has to be said, a free pass. Now, what I'll do, because it was the Deputy Mayor that led on the primary education point, I'll pass on all that information to the Deputy Mayor, and we can work on that with you and the Mayor Chair, and perhaps put a response together from the Town Council. But at the moment, there is no contribution to primary education, and that's clearly contrary to policy TTV 17, which requires one. And likewise, finally, my old favourite, contrary to local policy TTV 17, which requires contributions to local bus services, the County Council yet again has sought no contribution to the number 89 bus at all. So I can't say that I have a balanced view on this application. What I can say is that, having looked at the local plan in great detail, I am predisposed to think that there is a problem with the application. I'll be extremely interested to hear from West Devon Borough Council how they're seeing it as well. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Graham. I think slowly but surely I'm beginning to understand what the issues are with this application. It's certainly very complicated and very concerning. Does anybody wish to ask Graham any questions or make any points, please? Anne.
Thank you. Graham, you were talking about primary place provision, and you said that the first 166 places there was no...
For the Vistry site, yeah.
Right, okay. That doesn't take into account any of the number of young people that are already living in Tavistock, does it? You know, I mean, I have to declare, because my grandson is now 2. Where is he going to go to school?
That, Madam Mayor, is the exact question that I've been asking now for 2 years. We've got Callington Road. Of the Callington Road site, nearly half of those houses got a free pass. Butcher Park Hill and New Lanston Road, they both paid their full whack. And then we come back to Plymouth Road, and only a third of the houses are paying, and here, none. Now, end result is that they haven't, the council, they've told me absolutely clearly, they don't have a programme for acquiring the land at Callington Road. They haven't begun any design work on a school. They haven't costed the school out. The 4.5 million that I have estimated comes from national estimates, but it also chimes with the county council's own infrastructure plan. And they have no plans to expand any of the existing schools. You are asking exactly the right question. It will take from here 4 years from a standing start, even if they started moving tomorrow, to open the school. And I have no idea where these children are going to go to school. Because don't forget, it's not just the children from here, but the children from surrounding area as well that come into Tavistock schools. I really don't know what game the county council's playing.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, please? Mandy.
Can I just ask Councillor Parker, further to your questions and everything else and bits that have been in the local press, have we, or you personally, or we as a town council, had any intervention from our local county councillor as to where this stands? Because the education situation in Tavistock has been going on for a long time. We have not been given any contributions towards secondary education for many, many years in Tavistock. And there are ways and means of people being held accountable to what their moral duties should be with regard to this. They may say that, for example, Tavistock College has capacity, but we all know that there are the science block, and the mayor will know very well because probably some of it's still there from when she went to school.
Yes, it is indeed.
Yeah, and you know, if you're not going to apply for money on that basis, there are ways of actually sponsorship, etc., that they could have actually helped Tavistock College. Schools these days cannot afford to do these things themselves. So it brings me back to, has the local county councillor been in touch with us in ways that we can be supported in our endeavours to get the best education for our young people in Tavistock and those aspiring to move into these houses? Councillor Ward and I saw the little enclave of £500,000 houses, the 5-bedroom ones. Well, you can't tell me there's not going to be any children within those homes, etc. You know, our young people deserve decent facilities. And as I say, ways and means, quid pro quos, etc. Even in a section 106, Councillor Parker.
If I can, I'll take them one at a time, and I'm not going to criticise a councillor of any other authority. I'll answer the question straight. The county councillor, and I made the case very strongly to the then leader of West Edinburgh Council about secondary education. We were told that Section 106 money can only be used for capital works, not for maintenance works or to replace outworn facilities. I said at the time, and I say again, that is complete nonsense. I've been using Section 106 contributions for the last 50 years to bring capital replacement works into secondary schools, but there has been a reluctance all the way through the county council and the borough council to use Section 106 money for Tavistock College. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. And that's despite the fact that with the support of the town council, yeah, I'm sure it was, when I was on the Joint Local Plan Steering Group, certainly with the support of the county council law responsible for education, we wrote into the local plan a requirement for contributions to secondary education. But writing a policy is one thing, getting anybody to do anything about it is quite another. And up to now, there's been no impetus from the county or the borough to do anything to help Tavistock College. But that's not for want of trying. Primary education, you recall that when the town council asked for details on primary education, helpfully it was the county councillor who provided that information and started the dialogue going effectively between me and the county council. The information that she provided made it absolutely clear that the county council weren't taking into account, going back to the point that the mayor raised, weren't taking into account new developments in the town. And they were just plodding along from year to year. I'm going to be fair and say that our current county councillor has no expertise in education and school roles, and so she's left everything to the officers. I don't criticise her for that, others might, but I don't. The third thing is the local bus contribution. I've been hammering away at that now for 2 years, and my next move is to find out what's happened to the previous contributions, because looking back on past Section 106 agreements, there should be over £750,000 somewhere in the system for the 89 bus. I've raised this with the county council, and they have pretty well closed the door on me. And I think the last reaction was that I don't intend taking this any further. So that's where we stand with the county council. We have dialogue going on primary education, but not on secondary or public transport. I hope that helps, Councillor Ewings. Somebody's muted. Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, the dog was barking. Yeah. Does anybody have any comments to make or questions to ask, please? We've heard a lot of information about this development. We've had an opportunity to read the application. We've had a presentation from Baker Estates. We're probably better informed about this than we are about just about any other application, but we really got to sort of get our heads around it. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a question for Councillor Parker, really, and more out of interest sake. Is it within the planning authority's gift that if affordable housing is to be built, it is actually affordable for the average salary of local people, because this part rent, part buy is an absolute con and just traps people in a house they can't afford. So-called affordable housing going up at Butcher Park Hill, the cheapest was £200,000. I don't know who that is affordable to young local people in Tavistock. So my question is, can the local planning authority actually make affordable housing affordable to local people? Because I'm going to disagree with Councillor Ewings here. Those 5-bedroom houses in the enclave aren't going to be £500,000. They're probably going to be another 250k on top of that, because already there's 4-bedroom houses being developed on the Cavanagh estate going for 450. So, you know, by the time they built these, I just want to see developers building local houses for local people to actually afford and own themselves.
The answer is yes. The affordable housing that's identified in every development generally takes the form of one of 3 types. One is the housing for social rent, and the rents are set taking into account the local wage levels and all sorts of social indicators, and they're calculated by the social landlord and government, but the local planning authority, I mean, particularly West Devon is really, really lucky in having a true expert, Alex Rehag, as their social housing officer, and she is acknowledged as someone who knows enough about this not to let anybody pull the wool over her eyes. So in terms of social rent, I'm confident that we get there. The problem, there's another kind of classic element, which is what they call shared equity. You buy a bit of a house, the housing association buys a bit, you can buy a bit more, and so on and so forth, and you can do what they call staircasing, and you can usually go in at a very low level. The problem is when you want to sell, getting out of shared equity is more difficult than getting in, and it's the shared equity housing that is generally the least, the slowest to be allocated. And one of the big, and it's been like this as long as I've known it, one of the big problems with shared equity housing is it rarely goes to truly local people. It tends to go to ever widen. If you can't find enough people locally, then you go a little bit wider and a little bit wider until you're looking at the whole of Devon to fill it. And that is a problem, James, because then that isn't solving a truly local housing need. And then you've got all sorts of new types of provision coming up, things like rent to buy. So you pay your rent, but a part of that rent goes into a savings account where you save up enough deposit to buy, and then you make an arrangement for a mortgage at the same level as the rent and all that. I mean, there's new kinds of product coming on the market. And yes, West Devon is involved in that, and the local planning authority can agree with the developer the amounts of affordable housing that go into each category. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might be helpful. I'm thinking this, Chairman, because this comes up not frequently, but regularly enough to make me wonder whether it wouldn't be worth having inviting Alex Rehag to give us a little training session on how she approaches affordable housing and how it actually works in West Devon. Would that be helpful? Because I'm sure she would.
members? Is that something you'd be interested in hearing? Yes.
I'd certainly like. I'd certainly like to hear it, because I become so frustrated. I went to the affordable housing show that was in the town hall about 12-18 months ago.
Yeah.
And when I looked at every affordable housing scheme, I thought, thank God I'm not a young person now trying to get on the housing ladder, because I would just see all my money going to absolutely nothing. I would own a few bricks and mortar, but I would never own my own home, because, you know, like the young modern world, you spend the money that you can afford. So if you buy 40% of a property, that's all you're ever going to own. The rent to buy scheme, you'll be lucky ever to own that house. It really was shocking. So I'd really like to know how they come about this. So I feel more comfortable, and I can tell the young people out there, like I speak to, that say, how am I going to stay in Tavistock? You know, when I'm never going to afford a house, and everything they're seeing is just getting more expensive. So
well, one thing's certain, James, there's nothing in this.
Two-bedroom coach house.
Sorry, yeah, I was saying one thing's certain, there's nothing in this application that would enable young people to stay in Tavistock, because there's no provision for affordable housing at all.
Yeah. Alan, did you want to say something? No? Okay.
Alex showing.
No, and that's my point, and that really.
Okay. Alec, were you wanting to comment?
Hello.
Yeah.
First, I must apologise for being late, but I had a water leak in my kitchen, and I got carried away with doing that. Now, with the Callington Road, I was reading the other day, Callington Road, where you got the shared, you can buy part of it and pay rent for the rest of it. It starts off with a one-bedroom house, I believe, at £83,000 deposit, and £280 or something odd pound per month, plus other incidental charges. Now, I'd like to know where people are supposed to get this £83,000 from.
That's a good question. That's a good question for Alex Rehag. It's not one that I can answer.
I mean, how many people live in school? Or you take the people nowadays, majority of jobs, Tesco for start, and I think Morrison's, have very few people that work 40 hours a week. They're normally on 16 hours or 20 hours, and this is classed as employment. You're not getting any money, so where are you going to come up with this £83,000 or even the £300 a month rent?
I agree with you, Alec. I think it's a huge sum of money for someone on a low income to raise. We need to move on, I think. We've had a good innings on this one. We're coming back to Tony. Before, go on, please. So I've just spotted you waving at me, Tony.
Yeah, I just want to try and sum up what I believe.
Okay, you're breaking up.
So if it's an application of 45 houses, it would have to have 30% affordable, which would be 13.5 house.
Yep. You're frozen.
So instead of that, I decided to put in the application.
I'll stop the video. I should try that.
Is it happening again? No.
Go on, Tony. We can hear you.
Yeah. Basically, as I see it, the application for 45 houses would have had to have 30% affordable if they weren't using this 60 facility extra care facility. So if the extra care facility isn't possible based on the model they've supplied, and it could only probably be 20 or 30, then and then passing that on as an opportunity for someone else to build it, I can't see how and not give any money towards the school, I can't see how on earth we can support this at all.
Okay, thank you. Leslie?
Thank you. Sorry, I've just been looking up because I wanted to check about academies, because a lot of schools are academies these days, and I wondered about the responsibility there. But I've actually just found a government document, securing developer contributions for education. It's November 2019. It just might be worth a look, people looking at that, just to sort of see what the county council should be doing to ensure that there are sufficient school places, because there is a section on one of the pages that I've just seen that says they have to provide sufficient school places for any children within any new development. So just a bit of information, really.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move, Mandy. This is the last one on this topic.
Literally, it's just a point of information, Mr. Chairman. The college has had such a high roll in the past of over 2,000 pupils that is the figure that County Council base their information on. And because the school, when it went into special measures, dropped down to 1,200, and it was still considered it could have 1,900 to over 2,000, that is the figures they go on. So there will, in reality, there will almost never be a need to ever give the college a penny ever again.
Yeah. Yes, the principal had told me something along those lines. Okay, so we are going to move on now, members. Please give this application more thought. We're going to have an opportunity to have a conversation with Andy Bates on the 21st. We will have a final discussion at the next DM&L, and at the end of that, we must make a recommendation to full council, which will be considered the following day, and will then go forward. So please look again at the application, think about what you've heard, think about what Graham has explained, and come ready for further discussion and to make a decision. Okay, thank you. So the next application then, it does get easier from now on. The next application is a tree application, land adjoining the Grove, Mount Tavy Road. They want to do work to various trees, including taking out 3 ashes that have ash dieback. And I note that this work has been triggered by a report from the Highway Authority that had identified that some of these these trees are dangerous and are likely to start dropping onto the road. Does anybody wish to make any comments, or are you happy for us to refer this straight through? Refer straight through? So we refer to the tree officer.
I think Councillor Squire wants to speak, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, Pete. I thought perhaps you were just,
I think I should add that a social worker was killed on that road by a falling tree many years ago. He was called Arthur Blunt, and it was about 20 years ago. So trees on that road are a very emotive topic in my old profession.
Right. Okay. Thank you. The next application then, Overdeer Down Road, householder application for a single-storey extension at the side and rear of the property, and this is to form a home office and a utility room. Does anybody have any comments to make, please? Andy? You're muted, Andy.
That's the word we've got to stop using this year, isn't it? You're muted. I was quite happy with this. I don't see any problems, so I'd support it.
Okay, well, Pete's got his thumb up. Everyone happy? Okay, so we support that application. Thank you. So the next one is Unit 1, Cree Lake Industrial Estate, and this is the Tavistock Hire Centre. Consent to establish the hours of operation of the illuminated signage already installed. So the signs are up, the bulbs are in, but they've never switched them on. And they'd like to switch them on between 6 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 9 o'clock in the evening, Monday to Friday. And on Saturday, 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning. There's no mention of turning them on Sunday. Does anybody have any concern about this application, please? Graham?
Thank you, Chairman. There aren't many, but there are some people living in that area. And you look at the reasoning for the timing of the signs switching on. It's got nothing to do with the business. It's to illuminate the area to prevent break-ins. Now, it seems to me that it's ludicrous to use advertising signs as a security when people are living around the area. The shop isn't open at those times. And the purpose of advertising is to encourage customers to the shops. If they've got a security problem, put a PIR spotlight in, or cameras or whatever. The shop only opens Monday to Friday, and it opens 7:30 to 5 o'clock. It seems to me that it's perfectly reasonable to turn the signs on during those hours. Nobody can object to that. But having them on at 6 o'clock in the morning when there are people living nearby, and all the way up to 9 o'clock at night when there's no purpose for it, just seems to me to be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if I had to choose any times, I would use the same times as the shops open, which is Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 5 o'clock. It just seems ridiculous to me.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Anyone else? Alec? We can't hear you, Alec.
Right. How better? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm in agreement with Graham. It seems absolutely ludicrous to have the lights on at 6 o'clock in the morning if the shop's not open. And if anybody was going to burgle the place, they would still burgle it between 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't they? They wouldn't be burgling at 7 o'clock in the evening, would they? They have proper security lights and cameras put in there.
They probably already have got them.
Yeah, but they won't switch them on.
Okay, thank you. James, were you wanting to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, although the timings are strange, I don't have an issue with it. It's on an industrial estate. You got the Royal Mail sorting office up the road, illuminated early on. You've got another premises behind that, illuminated. So I'm not bothered about the illumination. Timings, all I can guess is it lights up the area. And I don't know if any of you have worked with anyone self-employed builder-wise, but you'll find that they're out the doors fairly early on in the morning. So having it on at 6 is quite a good advert, because you tend to have people moving around off to job sites and moving through Tavistock. So that's why I guess why they want it that early and that late for tradesmen that are up at the crack of dawn to go out and make fair. It's not a bad advert for a local business run by local people.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Alan?
Yes, I just agree with James. Everything James just said, I totally agree with him. It doesn't interfere with any private properties, anything at all. It's all on the industrial estate. I really don't see a problem with it.
Okay, so it sounds as though there may be at least two different points of view. So what do you want to do? We could support it as it stands. We could object, but indicate that the objection would be overcome by changing the hours and limiting them to trading hours. We could sit on the fence and go neutral. How do you wish to proceed? Would somebody like to make a proposal? James?
I think more so than ever in this current climate, we should be supporting local businesses. So I move we support the application.
I second that.
Okay, so we do have a motion in front of us. The motion is that we support the application as it stands with the hours of illumination. It has been seconded. Does anybody wish to discuss it further before we go to a vote? Graham?
Just a question for those who are supporting it, as on the basis that it's will provide decent advertising for builders and other tradesmen. If that's the case, then why not? Why? No, it's going to be an unworthy question, so I'm going to withdraw it. No, I've got no comments on it.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? In which case, those in favour of the, sorry, Leslie?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I agree with James. And on the basis that it's a hire centre, it's not a place that people tend to go to regularly. So there might well be contractors out there who need to hire something and need to know where it is. So it's telling people where it is, albeit at some very early hour of the morning, but who knows? It's just a thought.
Andy?
We all know this is for advertising. It's just why have they not actually said that?
That's why they have a sign. Yeah. Just to be, just to throw another point of view into the field, do we need to be concerned about light pollution and dark skies? It's another contribution to, one could argue, unnecessary light pollution. James?
Yeah, like I said, you've got the Royal Mail illuminated, you've got the gymnasium illuminated, you've got the skate park almost opposite illuminated. So I don't think it's going to increase light pollution significantly.
Okay, thank you. In that case, let's go to a vote then. Those in favour of the motion, which is we accept the application it is and support it. If you're in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion is carried and we support the application. Okay, thank you. So now we move on to 40 Drake Gardens. This is a re-advertisement, and this has been before us before. And in September last year, this is an application for a rear extension. In September of last year, we objected to this application because we were concerned about loss of light to the neighbouring property. Now, at that time, the extension was to be a 2-storey extension. And this reapplication is for a single-storey application extension. And that obviously has some very significant bearing. We are assured that because of the design, there is no concern about overlooking and being single-storey rather than 2-storey, that any impact on the neighbour's light is very much reduced. Does anybody wish to comment, please? Graham and then Leslie.
May I move that we support, Chair?
Thank you. Leslie?
I just wanted to raise the point about the privacy issue from one of the neighbours, because there are clear glass windows in this that the neighbour seems to think will impinge on the privacy of her property.
Okay, thank you. Any other views? Okay, Graham has proposed that we support this. Do the rest of you agree? Those in favour? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have another boomerang site here, where we go to land adjacent to Breckland. I think this is at least the third time this has come before us. This is an application for variation of Condition 1 plans and 3 vegetation border, blah, blah, blah. The principal change is that plot 2 is now proposed to be a bungalow, as opposed to a 2-storey house. Previously, you'll remember that the application was for two 2-storey houses. Approval was granted, They then applied for a variation, and they wanted to rejig the position of, I think, one or possibly both of the houses. And we opposed that. We were concerned about the impact on the residents in Deers Leap further down the slope. And now they've come back with a single-story property on plot 2, which they feel will help to hugely reduce the problem of overlooking the properties in Deer Leap. The variation regarding the vegetation border is basically a technical one, because the vegetation border is described in the diagram, but the original diagram has been superseded by a new one because of the single-story bungalow, and therefore they've had to change the reference to the diagram. But as far as I can see, there's no material change in the vegetation border itself. Does anybody wish to make any comments, please? Graham?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is in my ward, and I've had history on this site going back to the original application. I'll tell you now that I've had a long conversation with the principal objector this afternoon. She rang me up, and I promised that I would put her objection to you this evening, explain her objection to you this evening. It is true that the plot 2 has been reduced in height so that the new ridge height is approximately the height of the old eaves height. So it's come down about 2.5 meters. That's good. But for her, that's more than compensated for the fact that on the original scheme, they were looking at the building end on, and what they got was the gable end. So if you imagine the triangle of the gable end, now the building's been turned round. So although it's lower, it's now about 3 times as wide. And she feels that causes her and her family harmful amenity, that it harms their amenity. Yeah. I've explained that with the distances involved, and we're talking about something that's 26, 27 meters away from her house, that I think the planning authority might have some difficulty with that argument. She also said that she's spoken to the applicant and indicated that if the left-hand side of the roof was hipped as the right-hand side of the roof is hipped, then her problem might go away. So I've reported that to you. Can I also say that I think there's been a second change? It's not just that the plot 2 has been reduced to a bungalow. It's that the building that was on plot 2 is now the building that is on plot 1. So there's been a kind of double shuffle going on. But I'm not aware, and from what I've seen of the application, I don't think that the plot 2 building on plot 1 causes any greater harm than the original plot 1 did. So I'm reasonably confident that there's that they've gone as far as they're able to go with this scheme. And my first reaction was, I have to say, crikey, we've got there. But that's with the knowledge that there is still an objection from the nearest neighbour.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, please? Graham?
Yeah, may I then, with that, may I then move that we support, but with 3 suggestions. One is that since the amount of roof space on the bungalow is very much greater than on the original house, that the drainage scheme be revisited. I know that the residents downhill are concerned about the extra runoff and the capacity of the soakaway to handle it. So that's number one. Number two is just to remind the Borough Council that the permission should be subject to all of the conditions that applied to the original permission. It's a mistake that authorities do make, and helpfully Anna Henderson-Smith, who was the officer who looked at the last application that was refused at committee, she set out those conditions, and if we can refer to those conditions, the ones that were to be attached to application 1919/VAR, then the third thing is, since height is the biggest issue here, and even the committee thought that buildings any higher than a bungalow would create too much harm for local residents. Remember now that the new general permitted development order would permit buildings to increase in height without planning permission. So can I suggest that that our support be also conditioned by a condition restricting permitted development rights to increase the height of the properties? That it really is the key area in this part of the world. So with those three suggestions, may I move that we support?
Okay, James.
Yeah, I second Councillor Parker's proposal.
Okay, so we've got a proposal. It's seconded. Anybody else wish to make any comments or debate? All in favour, then please show. And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is a redundant barn at Anderton Farm, Whitchurch. This is for information only, it doesn't require any action from us. Change of use of an agricultural building to a dwelling house class C3. I understand that bit. And for associated operational development, class Q, brackets A plus B, close brackets, close brackets. Sounds like a mathematical formula. Yes, please, Graham, if you could just explain that bit to us.
No, it really is almost a mathematical formula. Normally, you can change a use of a barn by what is known as a prior notification process for permitted development. This one, although it's only here for information, please keep an eye on it, because it's been around for a while, and the real question, look at the photographs that come along with the application. The real question here is, can you change the use of a barn, most of which doesn't exist? The barn's in several bits, and the whole middle bit is a pile of rubble. And that's where the Q, A, B, C bit comes in, because as well as changing the use, they're going to have to effectively rebuild the middle bit. Now, the whole question is, can you change the use of something that's only thin air? And I'm offering absolutely no opinion on this at all. But QA and B determines the works that would have to be done under Class Q, which is the permitted development right, to convert the barn. Yeah, I'm not offering any opinion on the merits of the thing, but keep an eye on it, because there's good fun to be had there.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Moving on then, 15 Chaucer Road, householder application for a single-storey extension and new porch. Any comments, please? Tony?
Yes, from the plans, it just looked as though it was an existing utility room being turned into a porch and a conservatory being turned into a small extension. I would propose to back it.
Yeah, fine.
Yep. Are you all happy? Yep, so we'll support that. Okay, so the next one is 11 Watts Road. Change of use of a basement to allow rental or holiday let associated works. Change a current window to an access door and a bedroom to a kitchen. And just to remind you, this is in the Tavistock Conservation Area. The building isn't listed, but it is recognised to be a positive building. And I understand that the plan would be that the basement would become an independent one-bedroom dwelling that can either be let as a holiday let or a longer-term let. And according to the application, there would be no change to the number of car parking spaces. It's a big house on a big plot. Does anyone have any comments to make? Pete?
I have no problem with this. It seems a reasonable adaptation of a property which is not uncommon in Tavistock.
Okay. Barry, were you about to say something? We can't hear you, Barry. I'm not allowed to use the M word. We still can't hear you. We should be able to hear you now, but we can't. Oh dear.
Perhaps semaphore is the answer.
I think it might be. We'll let you work on that, Barry, and we'll come back to you. Leslie.
Thank you. I had no problem with most of it. It was just, I thought it was a shame that the window at the front of the building on the basement was going to become a door. And I know that they talked about it being in keeping. I just thought that was just such a shame on such a lovely house, really. But there aren't any windows at the rear, and then the only other window that you could do that would be the bedroom. So I don't know how you would rectify that, but that was just my only observation, really, that was a shame to do that.
Yeah. Graham?
Yeah, Leslie's put her finger on exactly the right point. You're right, Watts Road is identified as positive buildings in the conservation area and the World Heritage Site. And number 11 is essentially unchanged from the original. It's pretty well as it was. What this proposal does is create two major changes to the front, the public side of the building. It doesn't matter that it's at the top of the slope, because the garden could be gardened away, as it were. You can see it, and it's an important part of the building. One is that one of the windows will become a fire escape. The other one is that the center window of the bay window on the ground floor, I know it's called a basement, but it's actually a half basement, half ground floor, will become a door. And that will change the appearance of the building. Now, there's no details are provided, and not surprising, because there's no heritage assessment. Now, what the local plan says, what the World Heritage supplementary planning document says, and what the conservation area management plan says is every application should be accompanied by a heritage assessment. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to explain what's important about the building, what you're proposing to do about it, and on how you're avoiding any harm to the building. There's nothing of that here. Now, that works, I believe, is contrary to all of those documents, which basically say for important buildings like Watts Road, you should use original design features, original materials, and effectively keep the building's appearance, whatever the use is, keep the building's appearance as it is. And this application does nothing of that. So I will move that we object on the basis that it's contrary to Joint Local Plan Policies DEV 20, DEV 2 brackets 3, DEV 22 brackets 7. They're all there to be looked up. And Spatial Action 4 of the Tavistock Conservation Area Management Plan 2014. So I don't particularly have a problem with people using the basements as a holiday let. I don't particularly have a problem with people using the basements as a separate unit of accommodation. But if we are going to declare conservation areas, and remember Watts Road was brought into the conservation area in 2010, specifically because it and Glanville Road are pretty well intact remnants of late 19th century Italianates buildings and related to the mining industry. Then if we're not going to treat those buildings as something special, then we may as well not have conservation areas at all. So my motion hopes that we can encourage the applicant to find a way of accessing this unit of accommodation without having to damage the frontage of this important building.
Okay, is there some way we could phrase our comments to indicate to the applicant how the objection could be overcome?
Well, there's two possible answers to that. One, I don't know about enough about the building to know how to overcome it, and two, we're statutory consultees, but we're not there to put applications right. I suspect if it was me, I'd be looking for some way to access the building round the back. But I genuinely don't know enough about the building to be able to suggest that.
Right. Okay, so Graham has gone into quite a lot of length there about why there's a problem with the application. Does anyone else have anything to say? So do we have a seconder for that proposal? Yes, thank you, Anne. So we've got a proposal, we've got a seconder. We're going to object on the grounds that Graham has listed. All in favour, please show. That's carried.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. You ready for me to move on, Jan? 18 Deer Park Crescent. Application to determine if prior approval is required for proposed larger home extension, and then you've got the dimensions there. So this is a bit of a technical one. Tony?
Yeah, in looking at it, the dimensions they gave seem quite large, but there's an existing extension already there. It's just squaring it off as far as I can see. It's probably an increase to floor space by 25%.
Yeah. As I say, I think this is a technical inquiry, really. I'm not sure that we need to get involved with it. Graham?
Can I suggest that we put a one-word comment in? Just the word no. No, it doesn't need approval.
It's all to do with the size of the extension in relation to the size of the building, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a rear extension. You can go out 6 meters. It's a single story, and this is only going out 5 meters.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And you can go up 4 meters, I think, can't you? And this is
so no, that's on the side extension.
Oh, right. Okay.
Can we just neutral views, please?
I think we should, actually. I mean, that's why I say I think this is a technical application. We have no reason to oppose it, and we can leave the planning officer to worry about the technicalities. So yes, we'll go neutral, if you're all happy with that. Are you all happy with that? Thank you. Okay. Right, the last one. Isn't this an interesting one to come up? 2 Brook Street, which is the old folks' restroom. So after nothing happening to this building since 1990 something, and it being allowed to fall into dilapidation, out of the blue comes an application for a change of use to Class E, which no doubt Graham will explain to you in a moment, with associated building works. But for the first time since 1990 something, it looks as though someone wants to show it a little bit of love, create what looks like offices with 4 separate offices, a variety of workstations, a kitchenette and a WC, tidy up the garden, which looks like a mini urban forest at the moment, and knock a hole through to the car park at the back of the Prudential building to give access to the car park. Oh yes, hands going up. Excellent. Tony and then James, please.
Yeah, I looked at it today, and I thought it was a good application because, as I said, the place has been derelict for years. There was, in fact, an application to demolish in 2008 and 9. As last time things were done about it. Nothing's been done since. So we saw in the little building, there's no frontage difference on the application, which is, it's got the historical, I think it's 1953, I think is the plaque that's on it. And it's tied up the back garden. I thought it was a very good application.
Okay, thank you. James?
Thank you, Chairman. This building's been quite emotive in Tavistock for very many years. I personally am very pleased to see it going back to some use. I note in their planning application it is for an E-C and a E-E, which I'm sure Councillor Parker will correct me. Bracket C is a financial, professional or commercial operation. And a brackets E is a medical or health centre. So either or of those, I'm happy that that building's being occupied and being improved and being saved. So good.
Okay, Pete?
I concur with Councillor Ellis's comments, really. I remember when this was actually utilised as a rest room for the more elderly members of the population. So I have possibly a nostalgic view of it, but I'm pleased to see it being brought back into use after far too long a time when it's been in abeyance. So I support it.
Okay, thank you. Bear in mind that Class E is a new use class, and it's quite a flexible one. So it is possible for the use to change without necessarily getting planning permission. And it's a bit more complicated than that. Graham's gone off screen at the moment, so I'm not sure whether he's listening. James?
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at Class E, it is very flexible, taking in shops, cafes, restaurants, job centres, estate agents, nurseries and offices. But I think any occupation of that building is better than letting it go into rackets like it is at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Graham?
Sorry about that, Chair. I don't know how I managed to go off air. That was an accident. A couple of things. It's interesting that the application isn't being made by the owner. I just say that. Don't necessarily get your hopes up. It looks like it might be somebody who has a good idea, sees an opportunity for grant, and is taking that opportunity. If that's so, I think it's a great objective, and I'd certainly want to give every support I could. Yeah. Looking at the works that are proposed, I've looked at the proposed existing, and they seem to be really a nice, sensitive treatment of the building. Basically, it's a restoration, even down to it looks like cleaning the 1953 sign. So I think the works for me get a big tick, particularly as it's at the heart of the conservation area. Now, what it then comes down to is what I was doing while I was off air, and as I say, that was accidental. I was looking. I was surprised that James said that there was a restriction somewhere to the class, and I hadn't seen that. The use class E is a very, very wide use class. James has obviously looked at it, and you have as well, Chairman. I'll go through it. I've got it in front of me right now. I'm 100% confident that it's possible to restrict uses within that use class. Why do I say that? Because I was at an appeal the other week where I got really cheeky and told the inspector that I didn't think it was possible to restrict uses within the use class, and the planning officer, who happened to be Anna Henderson-Smith, said that it is. The appellant's solicitor said that it is, and even the inspector told me that it is. So I got the answer I wanted, that it is possible to restrict within use class E. So if we feel that any of these uses would not be appropriate for this building, we're entitled to say so and suggest that the permission be restricted to those uses, the acceptable uses. So what does use class E actually say? Well, it's a mixture of the old A classes and some of the old B classes, and then in the middle, some of the leisure and health classes. So you've got the old shop definition, retail sale of goods other than hot food. So would you be happy for this to be a shop? Don't see any reason why you shouldn't. For the sale of hot food and drink, principally to members of the public, where consumption of that food and drink is mostly undertaken on the premises, a restaurant or a cafe. Would we have a problem with it being a restaurant or cafe? No, don't see why we should. Services, and this is where James has, this is class C, James referred to. This is either financial services, that's professional services other than medical, or any other services which is appropriate to provide in a commercial business or service locality. So it might be a bank, might be an accountant, might be a lawyer. I only wish there were a separate use class for estate agents. It might be an estate agent. So, I mean, would we have a problem with any of those uses? I don't think so. They're perfectly okay for a town centre. Then the next one, for indoor sport, recreation or fitness not involving motorised vehicles or firearms, principally to visiting members of the public. Now, this one's a different one. I mean, this is a gym, a health club, squash court. Would we have a problem with a leisure use in here? I mean, I don't think the building would be adaptable for it, but I can't see that we would have a problem with a use like that in a town centre. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good, right. The next one is for the provision of medical or health services, principally to visiting members of the public, except the use of premises attached to the residence of the consultant or practitioner. So, I mean, basically, it's a doctor, nurse, dentist, surgery, but not one that's attached to the practitioner's house. Again, it's exactly the kind of use you would expect in a town centre. A creche, day nursery or day centre not including a residential use principally to visit members of the public. So, to me, that's something that's actually would be quite useful in the centre of Tavistock, and I can't see any reason why we might object to it. Then, an office to carry out any operational or administrative functions. Well, it was all of the buildings around it were offices. And offices, perfectly good functions in town centres. Again, I can't see a problem. The research and development of products or processes. Now, this is where it's getting a little more non-town centre-ish. This is the kind of use, R&D use, that you might find on an industrial estate. And certainly the last one, any industrial process, what we used to call light industry, it says being a use which had carried out in any residential area without deference to the amenity of that area by reason of noise, vibration, smell, fumes, smoke, soot, ash, dust, or grit. So would we be happy for light manufacturing uses in the town centre? Now I'm seeing nods and I'm seeing shaking heads. Now that's where this one gets, this use class gets tricky. It's not so tricky when you're looking at town centres, because most of these are town centre uses. It's more tricky when you're looking at a light industrial building outside the town centre and you realise that it could change to a shop without planning permission. So the question is, that's everything that's in use class E. Is there anything in there that we wouldn't want this building to be used for? And Tony.
Did you not start off by saying that restrictions can be placed within a class? So all we do is restrict the ones we wouldn't want.
I'm sorry, I can't hear it. I can't understand what you're saying, Tony. I'm so sorry.
I believe you started off by saying that both the solicitor, a planner, and someone else all proved that restrictions can be placed within a class.
Yeah.
Therefore, why don't we just replace the restrictions on what we don't want in a town centre?
No, absolutely. At the moment, if, for example, you were to say, and I'm not by any means suggesting this, that you didn't want the industrial class in there, you would say, ask for a condition restricting the use to everything in use class E except G3 industrial processes. So you do it by exception, yes.
Okay. James?
Yeah, I can't remember where in the planning application it was, but they did say it was going to be E brackets C, E brackets E. I've got no objections to any of the classes in Class E. You know, light industrial can cover everything from fixing cars, you know, to sewing machines, you know, and do bits.
Sorry, James, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, that's the point about light industrial. It doesn't include fixing cars. It only includes fixing cars if you use hand tools. It's the definition is it a use that you'd be happy to see in a residential area? So certainly sewing machines and knitting and all of that. Yeah, perfect.
As a mechanic, I do use hand tools. So
good man. Well, in that case, you would qualify.
Yeah. So and you'll probably find most mechanics do. I've got no objections to any of the classes. I just want to see the building occupied, in use, and restored. So I propose we support this as it stands.
Pete?
I concur with that exactly. I should just point out that opposite that particular facility was the largest garage in Tavistock for many years, of a very high industrial nature, called Bond's Garage, which stood through Tavistock in its history. So I've got no problem with any development in that area.
The good old days.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a proposal to support the application as it stands. Do we have a seconder for that, please? We do. Okay, thank you, Alan. And does anybody wish to debate it further?
No.
Okay, we go to the vote. All in favour, please show. And that's carried. Be good to see the building back in use.
Absolutely, I hope it does.
Yeah. Right, that brings us to the end of the applications and the end of the meeting. So thank you for your patience. We'll confirm the meeting with Andy Bates to you, probably in the next 24 hours or so. I think that's probably the next time I'll see you as DM&L, but we've got B&P next Tuesday for those who are members or wish to observe. Cheerio.
Cheerio and happy lockdown.
New Year.
Good night, Mr. Chairman.
Happy lockdown, yes.